My name is Tom King. I'm the founder of Toolkit.law. We're here with Bruce Jefferies of National Screening Centers, one of the world's most preeminent testing facilitators for substance abuse and paternity, among other things. Bruce, we see your website here at nationalscreeningcenters.com. But of course, if you go into Toolkit.law and you go into our divorcer tool, among others, you see that we list your paternity services because you do all the paternity and substance abuse testing that's ordered over Toolkit.law on your user web store. So let's talk about paternity testing. And I'd kind of like to start out with, let's just go with some myths. I was reading this on the internet. It says that here's a myth. Paternity testing is dangerous, expensive, and only possible after birth. Why, Bruce, is that true?
That is not a true statement. This article, wherever it came from, is back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. We've come a long way when it comes to DNA testing before the child is born. It's non-invasive. We do not go into the placenta and try to draw a sample from the child's blood. We do several things. Number one, we don't jeopardize the life of the child nor the mother. We take a blood sample from the mother's arm. The mother and child share the same blood. And then we take the buccal swab of the male who's participating in the test. And as long as they are 9 weeks into the pregnancy, we can tell you without any question, 99%, that the child that the mother is carrying in the womb will belong to the father. Now, number two is we also offer, when it comes to testing of a child in the womb, it's called peekaboo. So what we can do is take the blood from the mother and run the alleles and can determine if it's extra Y chromosome to determine if the baby that she's carrying is going to be a male or a female. So we call that peekaboo.
I had no idea. Okay, next myth. Here we go. Testing is dangerous and invasive. Fact, paternity testing is safe and painless. And okay, so I guess there's the myth. Fact, paternity testing is safe and painless. It involves collecting just a cheek swab. You mentioned different methodology, but cheek swabbing also works, correct?
Well, once the child's born, if the man and the alleged father and the mother don't want to participate in the prenatal type DNA, then we wait for the child to be born and we swab the inside of the child's mouth on both sides. It's called buccal swabbing. And then we also do the buccal swab on the alleged father, and you get the same result, just at a later date. And so there's no problem. It's not evasive or dangerous to anybody once the child's born.
Bruce, why do I hear or read results that say 99.9% accurate? Have you ever had that 0.1% happen?
As far as not being the father,
Yes.
I see it all the time. It's 0%. There's not a chance in hell that he's the father of the child. So
No. What I mean is, if the result says 99.9% paternity match, have you ever found the test that other 0.1%? Have you ever found the test to be wrong?
no.
How many paternity tests have you run in your 30 plus years?
Oh God, I couldn't even tell you. 100,000, 200,000. We do them every single day in all of my clinics located throughout Texas. So, I mean, it's one of our options that we offer in my company is DNA testing, whether it be paternity, maternity, avuncular or siblingship, grandparentage. We do all types of DNA testing. We've dug up bodies from the gravesite and cut the 6 inches of the femur bone out of their leg and get DNA testing. We've taken it off cigarette butts that the mother has brought in to test the saliva off the cigarette butt to see if he's going to be the father. We've done toothbrushes that have been planted into the man's restroom after the old one was thrown away because we don't mismatch DNA if they share a toothbrush. So, I mean, there's all types of ways to get the DNA test done, and that's not court legal. That's just for informational purposes only. But a court legal test, we do them all the time, all over the country. We did one in Japan. Well, I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but we did yesterday, Japan, Nigeria, and Germany. So, we're nationwide, worldwide. We're out of the country all the time doing DNA testing. So
Hopefully the father in Japan wasn't connected to the mother in Nigeria. That would be a chain of custody issue.
We don't have any chain of custody issues. Everything we do is up and up, court legal, and we don't have those issues. I mean, otherwise it's not court legal, and I'm not going to do it. I got asked today, as a matter of fact, about well, can I do it non-legal? And I said, well, don't do non-legal things. It's all
okay.
legal.
So let's talk about paternity. When someone is from one ethnicity to another, are there any challenges or nuances about paternity testing that the layman wouldn't know? Does everybody test the same? I'm trying to not ask the stupid questions, but I'm trying to get you to tell me the things that I wouldn't know without me looking silly.
Well, no, I mean, the chain of custody is where you start, right? And then at the end, you take the picture and everything's signed, sealed, and delivered. But on the chain of custody, it asks for ethnicity. So it says, are you African? Are you black? Are you white? Are you Hispanic? Are you Asian? And so we check that box. After we ask them, we don't guess. Or are you American Indian? Whatever.
So that's a good. Okay, why is it important to ask that? Because wouldn't the test determine that anyway?
No, there's different readings that you have to do that the PhD has to take and consider due to the population and growth of that certain race and type. So you may have a black man and you may have a Caucasian child.
Okay.
So you have different data you need to look at and take into consideration. So, look at it this way. Why would it be on the chain of custody in the first place?
Right.
If they don't care, then why have it on there? But they care because it makes difference in the data. And there's been times where the DNA lab has called us back and said, this child, I know y'all have a Caucasian on there, but what they're looking at is it may be a different race. And so race comes into play. You have to check the box. They're not going to guess, and they're not going to run the test.
Okay,
if I don't check a box in that chain of custody about their race, I get an email. What are they? What'd they say? So then, if we forgot to check it or whatever the case may be,
okay, but imagine. I'm trying to think of countries that are in the middle of the merging of ethnicity. So let's say you're from Egypt, or you're from where I've been, Istanbul, Turkey, where half of that super city is in Asia and the other half of that super city is in Europe. What happens if a person is about 50% white and 50% Middle Eastern? How do you categorize that person?
We have to handwrite that on the chain of custody, whatever the people tell us. If they say I'm half Polynesian and I'm half Egyptian, then we have to write that on there. The PhD that reviews and determines the final end result that he's liable for, once it's been reviewed and notarized, then it sticks. And so, yeah, we have to write that in. There's all types of ethnicities, and so we have to be sure. Some say they're Russian. Some say they're Polish. Some say I don't even know what the hell I am.
Oh, please don't say Ukrainian. Let's not go there right now.
No, we haven't. We don't do with them.
We're not gonna do that. Okay. So so someone decides to do a paternity test. Professional testing versus over-the-counter testing. What do we need to know?
Well, over the counter is for informational purposes only. It depends on the lab that's contracted with that kit. Most of the time, those kits are not sent to a certified laboratory, so you pay for what you get, and then you have to redo it anyway if you want to use it in a legal setting. So, I suggest do it right the first time. You don't have to produce it in court unless you tell us to.
Well, half the time, if they're going to do it right the first time, there wouldn't have been a baby.
That is correct.
Okay. So are there ways to fake paternity tests? Or are there ways that people try to fake it? I mean, does somebody put somebody else's spit in their mouth? I
No,
mean,
they just borrow their ID and they come up to take a DNA test,
oh,
and we copy the name, the date of birth off of the ID, and they think they're home free. And then we say, okay, I need to take your picture. And they go, for what? Well, the ID doesn't mean anything. You can buy that at a flea market. So we're going to take your picture, which makes it court legal. And then they get up and leave.
yeah, but if you have a twin brother, never lend your driver's license to your twin brother.
We had twins come by, a twin brother come by from Fort Bend County, and he did the DNA test, and it came back he was not the father, but he was a relative to the baby. So we told the mother that he's not the father, but he's a relative to the child. And he said, I bet you he sent his twin brother by. So what happened, she filed a motion in Fort Bend County, and they sequestered both of them in the same room. And we went by and got the real father. And the reason why they sequestered them, because they knew what they were going to do, is arrest them both for falsifying and frauding a court order. And so they were put in jail. But we found out that the other brother was the father.
But you know what
They were not identical. If you're identical, there's nothing we can do because you're going to get the same answer out of both of them.
You won't get. Will you get this? Do you get the same DNA out of identical twins?
Same DNA. They're identical.
Yeah. So how does she know which one she slept with?
You have to ask her.
I mean, either you switch the IDs or you switch the men.
They can tell. Identical twins. There's something about them, but I can't do it. But
okay, so you're now telling me that if someone is the definition of an identical twin when your DNA is identical?
Correct. That's why we do testing. We do testing on twins to see if they're identical.
Ah.
We can determine whether or not they're identical twins or not.
Oh, so if you're involved in a case where a client or an opposing party has a twin, have the judge have them both tested.
I would. They do it all the time.
When was the last time a twin swapped an ID on you?
Well, a twin, that's been years. That's been years ago.
Okay, so then what do you do if they're identical twins and their DNA is identical and it comes back positive?
I don't do anything. I just provide the report to whoever needs it, and they have to deal with it. My job's done. Now, the only way my job's not done is when Fred gives Bob his driver's license, says go take the test, and this has happened many times. And then the mom said, that's impossible. I say, come look at the picture. And she comes and looks at the picture and says, that's not him. That man worked for my husband, my ex-husband. Has that happened? Absolutely, it's happened many a times. That's why we take pictures. IDs don't mean anything.
Well, that person probably got a quarterly bonus for
Yeah,
going and
probably
getting
so.
tested. Okay. Now, do you ever do paternity testing of, we always say the alleged father. Do we use the terminology in some countries, alleged mother? Do we ever test the mothers?
Yes, we do those here too.
Now, what are the circumstances where you would need to test the mother?
She was given the child by a neighbor, or she bought the child from someone off a marketplace or in a bar because of her drug addiction. She sold the child, or the other circumstance that we ran into was a lady pretended to be the mother after so many years, and she was taken to a small town. The child was taken to a small town in South Texas, and come to find out, this lady had no relationship with this baby, and the baby was in horrible. It was a media case. Was in horrible conditions. And so we were asked to DNA test that lady, claiming to be the mom, and she was not the mom. So she was arrested for impersonating a mother and also child abuse.
Now, I know that you're involved with doing testing for many national and regional in the United States law enforcement agencies. Um, do we do DNA testing of any type when we have legal or illegal immigration?
Yeah, we've done some of those for the court when they have come across the board. I'm trying to follow your question to 100%. Are you talking as far as a paternity
Children.
test?
Now, I'm thinking about the children that come when children come
If
into a
they
country.
belong to the father. Yes, we have done that. Yes. When they find an unaccompanied child and then a relative shows up, not necessarily the mom or dad, but the relative shows up and says, I'm the paternal aunt, or I'm the paternal grandfather, or I'm the maternal grandmother to this child that was brought in the United States across the border with no parent. Oh,
And can
yeah,
you
we've done plenty of those.
and so you can determine if someone is an aunt or an uncle or a blood grandparent.
That's called avinucular testing for aunt or uncle, or grandparentage testing for a grandparent.
Avuncular. How do you spell that?
Avunacular. Avinucular.
Yes, you got that right. Okay, good. I just wanted to test you. Okay. Now, is there any way if someone does not want to be determined to be the father, can they put anything in their mouth like mouthwash or something else to try to invalidate the test?
The only possible way is to get a blood transfusion before you come in to take the test, and or, like you mentioned earlier, walk in with a cup of spit and put it in their mouth and just let it sit there. But we've never run across the spit scenario. You know, we have no clue. We asked the question: have you had a blood marrow transplant? Have you had a stem cell transplant? Have you had a blood transfusion? And if they say no, then
Well, wait a minute. You don't ask if they've let somebody else spit in their mouth?
no,
Bruce.
we haven't done that yet.
We found a hole in the fence.
Yeah. Well, they got to talk to us. You know, we ask questions for a reason so we can see in their mouth and listen to them speak. But I don't think people would stoop quite that low.
Do you really have that much faith in humanity?
I try to. I
Okay.
try.
Now, when when you get paternity results, if it doesn't say 99.9%, is it either that or 0.01? Is it almost all or nothing? Are there ever 50-50? Is there a 50%, a 2/3?
Absolutely, there is, but not on a father, not on an alleged father, not on a paternity and maternity. It's either yes or no. But you can get as you can get an avenicular test, and it might say 63.5%. So we're heading in the right direction, but we're going down the family tree too far. So we can't. We need to get another person to participate. Hopefully, if the father's dead and the mother's still
Well,
alive.
you don't mean hopefully the father's dead.
Well, no. What I meant to say, hopefully, that we could get the mother to participate
Yeah.
if the father's deceased, because we can take her DNA out of the equation and just be left with the paternal side's family to give us a DNA. So if we have a paternal aunt come in and it's 63.7%, that we ask, where's the mother? And they say, well, yeah, the mother doesn't know we're doing this, or, blah, blah, blah. Or they'll say, yeah, the mother will do it because she wants to know too, because they want maybe an insurance settlement or, something monetarily to their advantage. The mother will participate. Then that 63.7 could hit the 99 or 98.75, which as long as we get over 95, we're pretty safe that the judge will recognize it as being a legit family member. But yeah, we get low readings. We don't get 10s or 20s or 30s. It's usually above 50%, which means we're heading in the right direction. But if we can't get enough people to participate, then we're stuck. I mean,
What's the best story you can tell me about paternity testing that legal professionals around the world who are Toolkit.law users would like to hear?
well, I think most people don't understand how you can do if a father passes away, how they can retrieve his DNA. Because what they'll do is like they'll send in a brother. His big brother is still alive,
Okay.
and they come in and we sit down and we talk to them and we go, okay, so you want to be compared to see if this was your brother's child? Yes. Okay. Do you and your brother who's deceased share the same mother and father? No, we have different mothers. So that makes it more difficult. Well, where are the mothers still alive? One is and one isn't. So it's hard to take the DNA out of the two male donors in order to get a better reading. So we then ask them, how did your brother die? Well, he died in a car wreck. And where do you have a copy of his death certificate? I do. I said, where is it? Well, it's somewhere. I said, well, look on it on the front, about halfway down the bottom, the right hand side. It will say, have you had a autopsy? Yes or no? If it says yes, then we can call that medical examiner and get a blood stain card, and then take the chain of custody, get a copy of the bloodstain card, send it in with the baby sample, and you know exactly if he's the father. We don't have to worry about the brother.
That is a lot of work.
Not for us. We have it down to a science.
Okay, how long does it take to get paternity testing results?
2 to 3 days.
Okay, and do you send it to a national clearinghouse for the processing of it?
We use the largest DNA testing company in the United States.
Okay, and is there any last thing you'd like to tell us other than they can obviously people can go on toolkit.law and look you up in our user web stores in our vendor marketplace, or they can go to nationalscreeningcenters.com. What's the last thing you'd like to tell attorneys when dealing with DNA?
Call me.
Okay, well, if they're in, okay, but we got 80 countries. We got 80 countries.
I do not sleep.
I know that for a fact. Bruce,
So
it's been great
we,
again. Thank you very much. We've been talking with Bruce Jefferies of National Screening Centers, talking about paternity testing.